we'll go on to tonight's talk, and we're delighted, Alex, that you can be with us this evening. So I spent about 3 years working with Alex a few years ago, and Alex has always been a massive inspiration to me. His Some of the things that Alex has achieved, he'll go into all that, but Ironman, 700-mile triathlons, and most recently, Alex has achieved the cross-channel swim, which is something that most people can only kind of dream about and think about. So, real inspiration. I know that a lot of you today will be as inspired as I've been hearing about some of Alex's endeavors over the years. So, without further ado, I'm letting Alex introduce himself. Please give a very warm Agile No Offense welcome to Alex Carter.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tom, and thanks very much for the invite. It's yeah, a pleasure to be here. I'm very very thankful to be invited to come and talk to you all tonight. I've prepared something. I'm not quite sure. Tom asked me. He saw sort of a post of mine. He said, "Oh, would you mind coming talking at Agile Northants and maybe talk a bit about mindset and performance and things you've done." So it's quite a broad um, sort of topic. Try to sort of keep it sort of fairly to the point. But yeah, I'll basically just tell a little bit of my story and some of the things that I guess I've learned along the way. So let me share screen. This is where we hope the tech works. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, perfect, Alex.
Okay, there we go. There's Gail. Um, so I named this talk "The Art of Endurance," really because for me, in a lot of the challenges that I've done throughout the last decade and a half, it has been endurance that's got me through those. So what I wanted to do today was just tell some of those stories to you, and where relevant, some of the learnings that I've taken off the back of them, maybe some of the frameworks that I've applied in my sort of tenure as a coach, and then hopefully there's some stuff at the end. So we've got some assets and some stuff, cool stuff for you guys if you find it useful. So before we get started, just a little bit about me. I have to move you guys just so I can see. Uh, there we go. Perfect. Yeah. So on the right there, you can see my lovely, long suffering wife, Victoria Torres, and my 4-year-old son, Hector. They're kind of my everything. They're sort of what I do everything for. In terms of business, I guess my background is product sales, marketing. I've worked in both startups, scale ups, and more established multinational corporations. And I started a coaching business in 2019 that specializes in personal development, performance, and leadership coaching. And then came back into product management and tech in 2022. So at the moment, I coach a few private clients. I have a sort of product management consultancy. And for my sins, I am a challenge enthusiast. So, as Tom said, mainly ultra events and some sort of physique challenges. So I guess the story starts with me coming to in the back of an ambulance. I could hear the sirens going, the red light, blue light, red light, blue light. A couple of nervous paramedics in the corner, gas and air on, electrodes on the chest, and just coming to and sort of trying to sort of recollect how on earth did I get there. I was being driven. I was told I was being driven to A&E for emergency surgery on my legs. And I guess to give this a bit of context, back in 2011, I was in my third year of university and probably had too much to drink the night before and decided that I was going to do this crazy custom triathlon because swimming the channel at the time was too expensive, as I found out. And for a university student with not that much funds, it seemed like the next best thing. So the plan was to swim the distance of the channel in Loughborough swimming pool over 2 days, to then cycle from Land's End to from John O'Groats to Land's End, and then to run from Land's End back to Loughborough. It was designed to take just under a month. the whole entire sort of distance was about 1,400 miles, and it was a custom build, so there was no sort of predefined event. It was just something that me and a mate put together. So we booked some hostels, some hotels, and we trained for about a year in order to do it. I was a semi-proficient swimmer. I'd been a school swimmer, a low-level county swimmer, so which means I used to turn up and come eighth, basically, and get the sort of participation trophy. I could run. I was maybe sort of able to do 5K once or twice a week, something like that, in years before, earlier years of uni. And I was a terrible cyclist. I didn't own a road bike before doing this. I'd certainly never tried to cycle with cleats. And I had numerous attempts at cycling into a car, coming off in front of a lorry, trying to go around a roundabout. Definitely the one that I'm least proficient at is cycling. Um, but I was naive enough to start and stubborn enough to at least try and finish. So the swim, as it sort of stood, the sort of shortest point to point of the channel is 21 miles. So that broke down to 500 lengths on day one, 800 lengths on day two. Day one, shoulders were a bit sore, didn't sleep that well, got in the pool. Day two, we cracked through. You see the nutrition there. Yeah, probably learned a little bit about sports nutrition since then, a bit too much solid food, but we got through it in the end. And went up on the train that night to the topmost part of Scotland. And I think it was the day after the next day. So I sort of had one day sort of traveling. Day after the next day, we started, myself and a friend, going down Scotland, about 1,000 miles, two very novice cyclists, doing 80 to 110 miles a day, down through Scotland, into Wales. And we were in the saddle 8 to 14 hours a day, getting slightly tireder, but generally quite enthusiastic. We didn't have phones or phones with sat nav on, that we could kind of append to the handlebars. So it was looking at maps, stopping, going. We'd booked hotels and hostels along the route. And anyway, one of the things that I hadn't really planned for was the fact that Scotland is full of midges. And I had started to get bitten on my legs. I'd started to get infected in my legs. I'd started to get bites on the bottom of my legs, back of my bum. Those had started to turn into pretty bad saddle sores. And by, I think it was day seven, about 700 miles in, it got so bad that I needed to go and see a GP. So I went to my friends that I was staying at, the GP surgery next to them. And the GP took one look at my legs and my bum and said, "There's no way you're getting back in the saddle. Absolutely not. You're going to need at least 4 or 5 days to rest." So at this point, I've been training for a year. I know that I'm going to let my friend down. He's going to have to continue on. We've booked accommodation. I'm starting to think, my mind's getting away with me. What if I can't do this? What if I'm going to fail? And I was kind of given a note to go and get some pretty strong antibacterials. And as I was waiting for these, I passed out. I was rushed to hospital. The infection was worse than they thought. I had the beginnings of septicemia in both legs, and I had to have emergency surgery on sort of top part of my legs, bottom part of my bum. Sorry for the graphic images. It's just to illustrate the sort of the impact. So they drilled holes that were about the length of your small finger, the first two joints, in order to get all of the infection out. And the doctors told me that be able to walk within a day or two, but there would be no exercise for 5 to 6 weeks, and that was the end of the challenge, basically. So as you can imagine, put a year's worth of effort and training into it. I'd probably got a lower result in my university studies because of it. A girlfriend at the time and I had split up because it just didn't sort of work with all the training. And it felt like, for me, I felt like a failure, right? And I got back home and I remember being in a really bad place, mentally, physically, quite broken. And ruminating on what the doctors had said. You're not going to be able to do anything for 5 to 6 weeks. And after 2 days, I thought, well, what if I can just walk to town, right? What if I can walk to town? It's about 3 miles to town. What if I can walk to town and get the bus back? And I did. It was agony. It felt like someone was sort of kicking me in the arse every time. But I walked to town. And then I think it was 2 days after that, so 4 days after getting out of hospital, I said, well, what if I could walk to Stonehenge and back, which was 13 miles. And so I sort of carted my sorry self out with my girlfriend at the time, was not in a good mood, but I made it there, made it back. That put me in a slightly better mood, but was in agony most of the time. And I said, well, we've still got some of the hotels booked, we've still got some of the hostels booked. What if we could actually just, put a line under this and do some of the last runs? We were intending to do 14 back-to-back ultra marathons. What if we could just do two? And what we did, oh, yeah, what we did was the team sort of turned up. Myself, girlfriend at the time, my mum, charity ambassador, and we did an ultra marathon. My sort of bum, my legs taped up, lots of painkillers in 28, 29-degree heat, and then we did a half marathon to finish and finished at Loughborough. And whilst it was intended to be a 1,400-mile event, it was 700 miles. I'd failed, but I'd succeeded, right? And I was able to sort of take something from that. And as I was finding the images for this presentation, I sort of find some of these quotes, and I think some of the bits here really sort of stood out to me in terms of like what was the mindset that I was going through at the time. And it was, this one with Kobe Bryant on the left. You can only reach your limit when you can go no further, right? Um, and I had reached my limit. I physically could go no further, right? So I tried and failed, but I had reached my limit. So I found out where that was, which is something that I think a lot of people strive to do, and they never find where their limit is. And the other one here is there's a difference between interest and commitment. If you're interested in something, you're going to attempt it. If you're committed, you're going to see it through. I could have quite easily have actually said, well, look, I've had this catastrophic injury. There's no way that I can come back and do it. But I was committed to the cause, had a strong reason why, right, that allowed me to come back. And so I just wanted to maybe pause there for a second. Feel free if people don't want to engage, but it'd be good to get a gauge from anyone that is willing on how do you deal with failure? Where people have maybe failed at something in the past. How have you managed to, or how have you dealt with it?
Maybe stick your hand up, everyone, or post in the chat. Either of those is good.
I'm happy to say so. I get very frustrated if it's something that's important to me, and I want to go back out and do it straight again. So, did you have that feeling that as soon as you were recovered, you were going to do the 1,400 miles?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There was that irrespective of coming back and sort of completing it in a sense that there's that failure coming the back off that failure and wanting to prove that you can do it. 100%. Yeah, definitely resonate with that. Yeah.
Don't mind sharing a personal one. Alcohol abuse as a genuine one. I was pretty knocked back by a pretty arduous challenge, and I just went on a 3-day bender. Maybe not the most healthy, but it's
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I talk quite openly. If you've ever, probably most people haven't seen on my socials, but I've suffered with the inability to control drinking in the past and being more of a binge drinker. So, there's that kind of very much that all or nothing mindset that, whilst it makes you quite good at doing physical challenges, it also makes you a terrible drink or can make you a terrible drinker. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that, James. Okay. What I wanted to do is just this is by no means an exhaustive list, but this is something that allowed me to kind of learn from the failure of this challenge and to kind of move forwards and do other challenges. And so I wanted to give it to you guys as a bit of a structure. So this is just 5 steps to there are absolutely other steps out there and other sort of methods, but this is just 5 steps that I use to overcome failure. So the first one is digesting the failure. Why did you fail in the first place? What learnings can you take from it? Second one, reframe the failure. So did you fail entirely? Where did you succeed? So although didn't achieve the 1400 miles that we set out to do. We achieved 700, right? So we managed to raise £5,000 for charity, right, for a malaria charity that was very important to me at the time, having got malaria in 2008. Intensifying that desire to succeed. So understanding, what are you fighting for? Why is it important? This is a really important one because it captivates the emotional mind, which is the driving force behind action. I was talking to a couple of friends recently. I was talking to Gail as well about this earlier. There was a point where I was training for the English Channel where I was one decision away from getting out from that training swim and calling it off. And I got through it through grit and determination in the end, but having a reason why there would have actually made that a lot easier. So, fueling the emotional mind, which is the driving force behind the action, creating a new strategy on top of it. So, giving that rational mind the structure that needs to say, I'm going to do this, A, B, C, D, right? So the rational mind can direct the emotional mind. And then if those four sort of are done, step 5 becomes the easy part, right? Just turn up and execute, or the relatively easy part.
What was creating that feeling, Alex, for giving up?
I think it was being in a moderately hypothermic state. I was swimming Windermere and Skins in 14 degrees, and the support that I had, we were elongating the feed, so I should have been going every 30-40 minutes. We were taking that to an hour and 15. I wasn't in a great place mentally. I felt quite sort of alone in that swim. So, a lot of those things will happen in events like that, and that's kind of part of the parcel. But, having something deeper that you can emotionally connect to is important, because it then gives you that sort of power to ride through that. Okay, so those 5 steps aside, to Andy, your point, the best way to overcome a failed challenge is to find another challenge. For me, that was running, right? I wanted to find a run that, for me at least, I thought would be, given my current state, impossible. And this is 2 years later, but I was searching for some of the biggest, longest runs in the UK. And I stumbled across this one, which is the Grim Reaper Ultra Marathon. It's a 100-mile run around Grimsthorpe Castle. It's 10-mile loops, and sort of teams come up. You can see there, sort of, they put out tents for the support team, and then you run a 10-mile loop, come back, get some nutrition, refuel, and go again. I probably trained for this one. So this is about 2 years later, so 2014 or so. Trained for this one for about 6 to 8 months, and did sort of little bits in the week whilst I was working. Most of the bulk was at the weekend. So started doing back-to-back 5 miles. By the end of it, sort of 3 or 4 weeks out, we're at back-to-back 30s. So doing anywhere from 20 up to maybe 80 miles a week running, which for a guy my size, I'm not a runner. I did not have the frame for it. I learned this when I turned up, and I was definitely the biggest person that was trying to do this. But we gave it a go, and 20 miles in, first sort of marathon was all right, actually. And 20 miles, decided to have a pasta bake, which seemed like a good idea at the time. Pasta gives you energy, right? Again, probably did not listen hard enough in some of those sports science lessons. But I've never been pregnant. I can only imagine this is the closest it would feel like to being pregnant and maybe giving birth. But I was in a lot of trouble at mile 25, and had a decision to make. Do I kind of throw in the towel now, or do I just try and sort of ride this out, put one foot in front of the other? It took about 5 miles, 6 miles to sort of subside, 10 miles to sort of go. But after that subsided, it was relatively plain sailing until about mile 70. A little bit of hallucination in the night time, wasn't quite sort of with it. Imagine sort of seeing some butterflies and fungus and stuff. But, after that, it was totally cool. I'd never run more than 33 miles in the sort of train up to this. So, after that, it was uncharted territory. But at mile 70, so on the 8th loop round, I started to have quite a lot of pain in my right foot, and I managed a few more miles, and then took off my shoe, my sock, and found this absolutely massive blister on there. which I tried to sort of get with my nails. It was just so sort of tough, I couldn't sort of pierce it. And there's too much pressure on it. So I ended up having to pop it with a twig in order to alleviate the pressure, put the sock back on, foot's bleeding, and just sort of carried on. And that actually was enough to get me round to 80 miles. Now, every kind of loop, I'd sort of given myself about 10 minutes to get some nutrition, have some massage on my legs, and then go on the next loop. But at 80 miles, I was pretty fried. I didn't have much left in the tank, so I decided to sleep in the tent for about 20 minutes. Big mistake because my body got cold, and when I woke up, my left knee was so inflamed that it would not bend properly. And so when I tried to sort of move it, it just sort of gave way. And the right angles that the knee needs to go in to run, my body just wouldn't do that. So again, I had this sort of decision to make. Do I give up? Do I pull out? I know what that feels like. I've been through that before. Or do I just sort of try and put one foot in front of the other and try and find a way? And I opted for the latter. Just started putting one foot in front of the other. I was going slow, getting slower. Body was aching, and I managed that until 97 miles, so 3 miles off the 100. And my friend, my best mate, who was doing the last 10-mile loop with me. He's a runner himself, and we were going slow. We were going, 15. We were doing 1 kilometer in 15 minutes, something like that. And he gets a call from the race organizers, and they say, the cutoff time for this event is 26 and a half hours, and I've got 25 minutes to finish it. So he had to do the math for me because my brain was not working very well. But that works out to sort of 8-minute miles, which if I was doing that at the beginning, I'd back myself to do that. 97 miles in with like a foot that feels like it's about to fall off and a knee that won't bend. I was, the sort of default mindset was that's not possible, right? It's not going to happen. But again, 97 miles in, you're going to give it a go. And to this day, I don't actually know how this was possible. But the last 3 miles I did in 7:20, 7:30 minute miles, sort of 23 minutes or something like that came in at. And I was the last person to finish on the day, the very last person to get in. Out of 150 people, 25 people completed the race. We had a lot of dropouts, a lot of people that just, maybe did 7 or 8 loops. And yeah, very last person to come in. But one of less than 200,000 people in the world that have run this distance. So a big sort of accomplishment for me personally, coming in off the back of the failure before. And certainly some lessons to sort of learn off the back of it, I think. And talking to Tom before, one of the things I wanted to sort of distill through this was where there's a mindset or where there's something that you can take into other areas of life. And for me, it was learning to recondition your body to a new level of mind, right? So what does that mean? That means removing any internal limitations, not being held back by the thought of impossibility, and really believing that it's just a matter of time. If I can stay in this long enough, it's just a matter of time before I succeed. And I think that's what got me through that event, which to this day, that has been the hardest event that I've done out of everything. So I just want to, again, sort of pause there and see if there's anyone that has maybe a goal that maybe they've talked about it, maybe that they haven't talked about it, and it's over the next year, 2, 3 years that they'd want to share. It can be physical in nature, work related, just an unrealized goal that you've got.
I thought, am I saying something? um, apologies for the background noise. So I want to swim from Guernsey to Jersey. I'm from Guernsey. My husband and I met in Jersey. And I was in Alex's support crew for the channel. And actually, it was really interesting throughout the whole swim of the channel. I was like, oh, I want to do this. And then I've decided that actually I want to do something that has a significant meaning to me. And swimming Guernsey to Jersey is quite a similar distance, but has significant meaning. But I'm not sure if I'm quite there yet for the commitment. So yeah, but that's a not particularly talked about goal. what is a hidden goal I've got.
Amazing. What's holding you back from it, do you think?
The commitment and, dare I say, going back to you, the sense of failing. I don't like failing, and so then I need to know what my purpose is as to why I want to do that, because I know it would take a lot of commitment to be able to do it with then having the outcome that I want it to be.
Amazing. Thanks, Gail.
I think for me, Alex, one of my other friends, he'd done he'd done the Snowdonia 100K, which there's a 100K series. I think one of the biggest ones is in Snowdonia. Just doing so, like he completed that, not particularly quickly, but he completed it. So doing something like that, I've not got a specific goal as in where, but just something like that would be pretty incredible.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds awesome. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Okay. So what I wanted to share here is there's plenty of habits out there, and this is by no means sort of an exhaustive lot, but what this is 5 habits from my performance coaching program that I used with clients to get them more comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So if we think about certainly doing a physical challenge or trying to take more on, trying to grow into a new role, it's going to be quite uncomfortable. The more you can get comfortable being uncomfortable doing these types of things, the easier it becomes. So, I'll just sort of whiz through some of these, but cold showers. This was fundamentally one of the most important things for me when training for the English Channel. I don't live near a sea. I was only able to get to the lake on some weekends, but I never had a problem with the cold. Now, I put that down to 2 things. One, putting on quite a lot of body fat, and number 2, cold showers, which entrains my nervous system to be cold adapted. You look sort of add on the immune system benefits and the improved circulation through vasoconstriction dilation. Cold showers is incredibly beneficial at getting you more comfortable being uncomfortable. Morning movement. So this is not your sort of regular exercise sessions. This might be 5-10 minutes of exercise in the morning, usually either HIIT or strength training. HIIT for guys is really important. It improves your testosterone by 18%. As we age, our testosterone comes down. So this is really, really important. Phone detox. So these kind of devices that we all sort of use and we're glued to, just actually putting those away in the evenings, at the weekends. If you've got families, it improves connection or improves connection with a partner, but also again starts to balance the hormone profile by reducing radio frequency electromagnetic field radiation. 5 a.m. club, again, one of the biggest things that I say discovered. I used to get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I read about, I think it was Robin Schwarmer, maybe. Can't remember the guy that sort of pioneered it, but I read about this and I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And my wife said, how selfish are you getting up at that time to begin with? But I worked backwards towards it. I actually had to come off the 5 a.m. club to swim the English Channel because I needed more time to recover. But for probably 6-7 years, I was up at 5 a.m. and it gives you an extra working day. Whether you put that into physical challenge, whether you put that into personal development or being with your, whatever it is, right? That's an extra day you've got of time. And then the sort of fifth and final one here, I stole from David Goggins. For anyone that doesn't know about the 40% rule or the cookie jar, 40% rule is when you think you're done, you're only 40% of the way there. So kind of that acknowledgement that physically you feel like this is it, and actually you got 60% in the tank. And then whenever you succeed in something, whether it be, a career, advancement, whether it be something that's important with your partner, whether it be, a physical challenge, storing that in the cookie jar as a memory that you can tap into to harness that emotional mind. Okay. So the next challenge that I did, probably about a year and a bit later, I sort of captioned it. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Everything that I'd done before this point was endurance related. And it had been just about me against me. Right, that was it. What I wanted to do next was I wanted to compete against someone else, and I wanted to sort of have a physical element there. But you can make the best plan, and when you get punched in the face, that goes out the window, as Mike Tyson said. And you can see there, I'm the blue guy getting pummeled by the red guy, who is a much better boxer than me. So I signed up to train at York Hall. So this was not a sort of back end brawl type white collar boxing, unregulated. It was very sort of well put together, but equally an established hall for anyone that knows boxing. Some pretty serious boxers have fought at York Hall. And so the training camp was for 10 weeks. We trained 4 to 5 times a week, something like that. And it was going quite good until 8 weeks in. I was fighting a guy a little bit taller than me, 6'5", definitely a better boxer as well. Broke my nose, and 2 weeks before I'm due to fight, I've got this broken nose. I'm not sure, what do I do? Do I kind of just basically throw in the towel, or do I try and not spar and maybe see how it is kind of come fight night? We found out who we were fighting. I think it was a day before or a couple of days before, can't remember. But my coach, anyone that's into boxing might recognize him. He's ex Sky Sports commentator. He thought it'd be a good idea to put me with 10 weeks of experience against a guy with 18 months experience. So you can imagine, the sort of experience mismatch. Round 1, I think, was pretty fair. Round 2, he definitely had me. I got counted to 6 on the mat. You can see me on the left getting sort of pummeled there, sort of running off to the ref. It wasn't going so well for me at that point. And again, had this decision of, do you throw in the towel or just maybe try and get up, see what you can do, stick with your strengths, which for me, although my sort of punches were kind of like handbags, I've got a good engine, right? Like anaerobically and aerobically, I'm okay. So I thought if I can just sort of last in with this guy, I can maybe, be there at least when make the distance. And for whatever reason, luckily in the end, he was definitely the better boxer, but I got a win on the day, just because I was as disciplined, I think, and outlasted the competition. And I like this quote from Daniel Goldstein because he talks about discipline. He's like, is it something like a muscle? The more exercise, the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. And that's exactly it, right? Because neuroscientists have discovered that there is a part of the brain that grows with discipline. It's called the mid-cingulate cortex, and it improves your ability to do hard things. So this comes from some of the evidence from Huberman Lab. Some of you guys might know the podcast that Andrew Huberman does. There is, I think, 192 peer-reviewed studies with 3,000 participants that has led to these sort of conclusions. And you can see there, increased persistence under pressure, right? When you're trying to achieve something big or important to you, being able to persist when other people would be like, actually, I just want to stop, right? Improve pain tolerance. So if you're doing something physically or mentally demanding, you're learning a new skill, a new language, studying for an MBA, improved pain tolerance to be able to just sort of stay with it and continue on learning. Better emotional regulation, right? The sort of improved ability to make decisions when the stakes are high, and stronger action bias. Right? All of these things that improve when you become more disciplined and you start to build that part of your brain, the mid-cingulate cortex. I love this quote as well. This is from Confucius. So, maybe sort of someone will correct me, a history scholar, but 500 BC, something like that. So 2,500 years old. And even then, they're talking about the person that knows themselves the best is the person that becomes the mightiest warrior.
Alex, I just got a quick question from Nicole on one of the techniques you mentioned earlier. I thought it's probably a good opportunity to raise it, if that's all right. So Nicole asked, can you explain how waking up at 5 a.m. gives you a full day? Do you not need to go to sleep early to compensate?
Yeah, they're a good point. So if I was waking up at 6:30 versus 5, 1.5 hours, call it 5 days a week. That's where you kind of get in the extra working day for them. And I think it depends what you're doing. If you're working in the evening, maybe, and you're a sort of night owl, then maybe it isn't. But I think most people in the evening, what are they doing? Relaxing, unwinding, watching TV, staying up too late, eating, drinking, versus going to bed a little bit earlier. So, if I want to get up at 5 o'clock, I need to be in bed at 9:30. I kind of need that. And I need my sort of 7.5, 8 hours sleep. So I guess it depends what you're doing with the evening time. Absolutely. But yeah, good point.
Thank you, Alex.
So this is one of the sort of final frameworks I wanted to just share with you guys. But this is I call it the discipline advantage. What it is a step-by-step process of how to get predictable performance results in a increasingly uncertain situations. And I'm going to share the slides afterwards, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's whole systems and frameworks for each one of these, but I'll just sort of talk through top level what each of these ones means. And for anyone that's interested, I will Tom or Greg can share these afterwards. So the first one is direction. Getting clear on your vision. Like, what is it that you want to achieve? So we're at a perfect time now where, we're almost at the end of 2025, 2026 is coming up. What does success in 2026 look like? Aligning that vision to your core values. So why are you doing something? Why is it important to you? So for me, swimming the channel was important to me because I wanted to show and demonstrate to my son that this is something that you could do if you put your mind to it, right? So that was the value that the vision was supporting. Structure, and this is really important one, right? Because most people wake up, brush their teeth, have breakfast, go to work, maybe get some exercise in. They prioritize their time based on a to-do list and habits. This structure flips it on its head and says, actually, if you can align your diary, certainly work diary and personal diary, to what you value and what your vision is, you'll be able to optimize your time much more efficiently. If you layer on additional goals, so everyone does this in business, right? We've got KPIs, OKRs, goals, but very few people do this from a personal perspective. So start to get measurable goals next to it. Introduce a sense of urgency. So high performers, the difference between when they say they're going to do something and when they do it is much shorter than the average person. So introduce a sense of urgency to what you do. Perception. So this is just reducing the amount of time that you spend unconscious. If you think about your day to day, how many points can you actually sort of say, I did this, I did that, etc., etc. How much of your day is spent unconscious, just going through habitual motions? Losing comforts, we talked about controlled uncomfort, intensity. This is becoming more focused, introducing accountability, friend, partner, coach. New challenges, we talked about that. And then finally, elevating, prioritizing, accelerating those outcomes. This is particularly important for anyone in a startup where you can focus on however many things, but it's only really 10, 15% of things that are really going to shift the needle. So elevating by prioritizing, accelerating those key outcomes. Okay, we're almost at the end, guys. Just one final challenge to talk about, and I guess this is the one that Tom had seen and asked me to sort of maybe come and just share a few words on. This one for me required sign off from the boss, aka the wife, aka the challenge widow, just because it took that much longer. So everything else before, I'd had a year in the first one, 10 weeks for boxing, 6 to 8 months for the 100 miler. This took me about 2.5 years to train for this one. And you can see here, like in those 2.5 years, I had to swim about 2 million meters in preparation for the English Channel. This was actually just before I decided to swim it, but I was lucky enough to be one of the swimmers to go and join Ross Edgley, who swam around the UK. There were 300 swimmers there, 60 of whom had swam the Channel. So incredible honor to be part of that elite crew, and definitely inspired me to want to join that cohort. You can see there the sort of the rainy GIF. That is me swimming Lake Windermere back in 2023, which is 18 kilometers. The storm came in and they called off the event. Luckily, we were over halfway and we were given the option: do we want to continue or not? Safety support had been removed, so it was me and a kayaker, and we said, we'll stick close to the shore, give it a go. Luckily, we finished. And then a few other swims, trips to Croatia in 23, in 24. The two men in the photo below are from a Lake Zurich swim, which was a 30 odd kilometer lake swim. We started with the boat captain on the left, looked like a Ralph Lauren polo model, lovely chap, really crap boat, broke down after 3 hours. And we ended with the captain on the right, maybe not quite as easy on the eye, but a lovely chap, and pleasure cruising on the lake, and decided to help us out for the next sort of 10 hours plus. So really, really nice bloke, and the reason we were able to finish that event. So I just wanted to play this video because, again, thinking about the mindset that you go into with an event like this. I think Tim, who's one of the coaches from Red Top Swim, which is arguably the best organization out there for anyone wanting to do any of the Ocean 7, which are the 7 biggest straits in the world. It really sort of encapsulates what I was thinking in the run up to the swim. So I'll click play.
You want the training to be hard, you want swim day to be hard, so you keep the people who are kind of on the cusp of should I, shouldn't I, to not make it, quite frankly, because you guys put the work in, you guys deserve to make it. So you don't want it to be easy, you want it to be tough, you want to raise yourself up to the level of the difficulty and to overcome it. And you've also got to remember out here is that this is a privilege to be able to do this. With all the shit that's going on in the world, and you have the opportunity to do this, you're one of a fraction of a percent again that has the opportunity to do this. So whatever you believe in, whatever you think about, whatever is your motivator, whether it's kids or whether it's a charity, keep that in your forefront of your mind, because you're doing this and they're not.
So you said a few things there, but what really stood out to me, and certainly in the 3 or 4 months training that led up to the English Channel, what became increasingly important was elevating your, and this is literally just before we go in and do a 6-hour training swim in 16-degree water, which is a prerequisite for swimming the channel. But he talks about elevating your body to a new level of mind, right? Raising to the level of difficulty. He talked about it being a privilege, right? I was under no illusion that going on a camp for a week to swim 60 odd kilometers with a young family at home, that's a privilege, right? To have a partner that's able to support me and to do that, to be able to take the time off work and to be able to go to Croatia and do that. To be able to actually just get on the boat and attempt to swim the English Channel is a huge privilege. But he also talked about the sort of mindset of, you want people to on the cusp not succeed. So there's that assertive aggression that's necessary that I needed to adopt to attempt something like this, because all of the other challenges to this point, apart from if something went catastrophically wrong in the boxing, right, you're in a much safer environment, right? There's only so much that can go wrong. But when you're swimming the English Channel, it's the busiest shipping lane in the world, and 10 people have died doing it. And so, there was the last chap, Ian, I forgot his surname, in 2023, who he went under and his body was found washed up on the shoreline, a few days later. So very much that's at the back of your mind. So you need that assertive aggression to actually show up and do something like this. But beyond that, I needed that reason why. Tim was talking about it there. I needed something that when time got tough, I could rely on it. And for me, that was my son, right, as I said before. So there were very much 3 levels to the swim, and I'm sure Gail can attest to that as on the support group. But just before I got in, all I really want on the day is just to not die, basically. I'm thinking, right, let's just get in, give it a go, let's not die, right? I'm a dad now, this is not like I'll kind of die in the water to prove a point. I don't want to do that. But at some point when the sun came up after 5 hours, 6 hours, I'm starting to believe that I can actually get across. I'm more than halfway. And so my mindset is, okay, I'm not going to die. right? I am going to get across. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take. It might take 15, 16 hours, but I'm going to get across. And then finally, after about 10 hours, last couple of hours, last 90 minutes, I can see France. I can see it coming in. There's points where it doesn't seem like it's getting any closer, but I know that I'm going to get there. And I know that for me, I'm going to do a good time, right? And so these were just the three sort of levels that I went through from a mindset perspective. And this is me sort of just arriving on shore.
Well done, mate! He's done it! Good job!
And so it took us 12 hours, 25 minutes. My elbow, I had some sort of jip with it in the sort of build up to swimming the channel. I'd had to have a cortisone injection, but it held on rather by a thread and became the just over 2,048th person to swim the English Channel solo. Um, and so if you forget everything else, I'll share the slides for anyone that's interested. But if you forget everything else, I just thought these are sort of four key takeaways. Don't be afraid to change who you are, right? Challenge grows people. I don't know too much about this group, but certainly hearing the way that Tom talks about the people that turn up to it, it seems like it's for a period of, like-minded individuals that are about growth, developing themselves, developing their careers. So don't be afraid to change who you are. Systematically learn from your failures. It's about being able to reframe, refocus, and come back stronger where you have failed in the past and learning from those mistakes. Your brain and self-discipline can grow, right? The science points to that. As I said, 192 functional MRA studies with over 3,000 participants proves the science behind the mid-cingulate cortex growing through hardship, right? So you can entrain your brain to become more disciplined and then consciously choose your challenges. Life is challenging. Everyone's going to face challenges, and you can either face them, unwittingly and have life throw them at you, or you can choose them. And then when life throws challenges at you, you've got a better toolkit to be able to kind of deal with them. So that's pretty much everything that I wrote, guys. The only thing that I also wanted to say was I wanted to think about something I could give coming into this. And I thought for people that are interested in this topics moving into 2026, this might be useful. So this kind of month's worth of sort of content is really for anyone that wants to focus on vision, sort of alignment and goal setting. If anyone's interested, Tom, I'll speak to you about getting access to this. But yeah, we'll send sort of login details for anyone that wants to access the content for that.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, just about wraps us up, I think.
Great stuff. You got time for questions? I'm sure
Yeah,
there'll be
absolutely.
questions.
Yeah. Let me just stop sharing.
So if you've got questions, either stick them in the chat, and I'll put them to Alex, or if you want to take yourself off mute and ask a question yourself.
Can I ask a question? And I said something earlier. It's the coping with disappointment that I think I would find the hardest. So I'll give an example. It's not from me, but I like tennis. And do you follow tennis at all?
A little bit. I used to follow them more when I was a bit younger, but yeah.
Okay, so I was a massive fan of Roger Federer, like so many other people. And when he had match points at Wimbledon on his serve, and he lost in the end to Djokovic, I think I was more gutted than he was, because he said he was over it within a day or two. And obviously that would have been a big challenge for him late on in his career to try and win Wimbledon one more time against his arch rival. To get over that kind of thing in a day or two. I mean, you've obviously had, as you said in your talk, you've had some disappointments and failures when you put a lot of effort in, trained for a year, and then couldn't complete that with all the bites and stuff that you had. How can you? I know you gave some insight into it about thinking about what you have achieved, but if you've come so close and then failed, how can you get over that disappointment in a day or two?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the time frame is different for everyone, but imagine if you've had a partner, right, your very first love, right? How difficult was it to get over that person? Right? It was probably quite difficult for many people on here. Um, Later on, it can become easier, right? Because you've got a better toolkit of knowing how to do it. And the alternative is you don't love, right? Or you don't show up, you don't give it a go. And I think that's where, people maybe step into a bit of a trap where they would rather kind of stay safe in the known than to step outside into the unknown because they're scared of, well, what if? Well, flip it on its head and, well, what if you were able to win that point in tennis? What if you were able to become Wimbledon champion? What if you were able to, whatever the prize money is, right, from winning? So I think it's about flipping it on its head and inversing that kind of narrative because we all have that, right? The monkey on our shoulder that says, you're not good enough, you're not going to be able to do this, who are you to even try? Like we've all got that. But if you can start to, come back with some questions to the monkey and, almost reframe what it's saying, it starts to build a slightly different narrative. And then it's just about, showing up with the best of your ability and trying. And you either be successful or if not, you kind of learn from it. And it might take you, a year or 2 years to get over the first one, right? It might do, but every failure, I guarantee you, if you keep sort of learning from it and reframing it, that time to get over it will shorten.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Andy. We've got one from Joseph asking, show the previous slide again. Joseph, was that the coaching slide? I'll let Joseph retype if he wants just to find out which slide he's talking about. Nicole asks, are there any daily routines or rituals that you do to feel help or tackle larger challenges or face failures or best practices you would recommend people do when trying to reach their goal? I think you covered this partly, Alex. I'm not sure if there's anything specific, Nicole, you want Alex to go into.
I mean, what I can maybe sort of point to is, I liken it to the concept of being in state. So I have a morning routine that I'll do that works for me. When I've coached people in the past, there might be 20 habits of which we looked at sort of five, for example. And it's about finding the ones that work effectively for you so that when you show up, when you show up at the beginning of your day, you show up consistently at an 8 or 9 out of 10, rather than some days you're a 10, some days you're a 3, and you oscillate up and down. So, specifically, what works for me is I do some morning movement. I do a little bit of only sort of 8 to 10 minutes of meditation. I do a little bit of breath work sometimes, and I do cold showers, right? And, that for me takes 15, 20 minutes. It's not that much time, but I feel like I'm a much better version of myself for doing that. So I think with all of these things, you can get people that say, oh, meditate for like an hour, breath work this. It's about finding things that work for you. We're all busy finding things that work for you in a condensed period of time.
I've got one, Alex. Do you believe that gaining this mindset and attitude and perspective anyone can achieve, or are some people more cut out mentally to dealing with it, or can anyone do it? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think there's this kind of the whole nature nurture debate, right? Like there's people that are born more type A or more kind of like maybe like a red sort of personality. But if we take mindset to mean the cognitive thought that drives your behavior, absolutely the firing of the neurons in the brain, right, is the more they fire together, the more they wire together. So if you can practice it when it's unnatural and practice this enough, it becomes natural or more natural and more innate. So yeah, I think anyone can change their mindset. It's certainly not a fixed trait. It's very much something that can grow and change over time.
Good to know. Good to know we can all get there.
Yeah, it's a great book by Carol Dweck on mindset. She kind of wrote the sort of the book on it. It is, I think it's called Mindset for anyone interested.
Check that out.
Alex, sorry, I can't put my hand up because I'm now in the car. Um, do you have any regrets? Because you, as you mentioned, you've got a young son, and as you mentioned, your wife was the widow challenge for a period of time. Do you feel to you as what it's given you as a person, as well as hopefully what it's given your son Hector, as inspiration and something he can refer back to in time to come as such? Do you feel, from your perspective, your challenge, or particularly the channel, has all been worth it?
Yeah, great question. I think I've got absolutely no regrets in any of the things that I've done. They've taught me, valuable personal lessons. They've given me things that I can share. I've learned from some fantastic individuals and teams and coaches and people along the way. Um, but I certainly, over the last 4 years, and I've done, two things since Sector was born. Well, one being the channel and all the events that kind of swimming events that led up to it, and one being a sort of more physique based challenge. Um, you do feel guilty at times, but I think for me, it's about outweighing hopefully the benefits that it will give to him and to the family later on, versus taking time from them, because just because you're spending more time with someone doesn't mean you're present, right? The areas of our life aren't neatly bundled into equidistant time pockets. There, you spend more time at work than you do with your family. It's just the reality for most people. So, I try to think about it in terms of how present can I be in each of the things that I do, rather than how much time do I spend in each of the areas of my life.
Thanks, Alex. Carmen has got a question as well. So, what do you do to recharge your energy?
Oh, I love that question. Great question. For a long time, I didn't. I was just sort of very go, go, go. If we talk about energies, like masculine focused energy as opposed to feminine, masculine being the do, and feminine being kind of the be. Um, Now I try to take holidays, make sure I'm kind of conscious of what time I finish at work. Um, I will try and, I'm very sort of, well, not very, but fairly sort of militant on my sleep now. Um, I will try and make sure now that I finished the channel, I'm seeing friends a lot more. So it's been, silly season at work, getting out to London, seeing people, just doing things that connect you with things that you enjoy or value, I guess.
Great, thanks, Alex. Good answer. Richard asks, we often face challenges as a member of our team rather than as individuals. Can a team of people develop this mindset?
I think so. Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, so this was a massive learning for me when I did the channel, was that although it's very lonely and you're the only one swimming, it is a huge team event. And fundamentally, I would not have got across if it wasn't for the people on the boat, particularly, and even, the support crew over in France as well. You're getting in, waves of pain going through. You're getting in cramp. So, you need a coach and support crew to be on top of that for you, because you can't be on top of it in the water. You have to rely on the team to motivate and inspire you. Now, I think that worked really well because one of the support crew on there was a chap, Chris, who's swam the channel. Gail was another one. She's a very proficient swimmer. She won't say this herself, but she swam the three biggest lakes in England, and first female. Would have been first overall if for 8 seconds. So I think there was this shared sort of mindset and camaraderie that was there with this singular purpose of, I happen to be the swimmer in the water, right? But it's the team is going to get you to that view. So I think when we think about how do you get a shared mindset, and back to what mindset is, the collective thought that drives behavior. How do you get a collective mindset within a team? I think it's about being very clear what the vision is, I think it's about aligning the values of each of the members of the team, and then providing sort of, motivators chance to kind of get together that move you towards that sort of collective vision with shared values around it.
Amazing, thanks, Alex. Carmen's got another question, which I was going to ask as well, and probably a lot of people are thinking this. What is the next challenge? What are you doing now?
My wife, as she says, is a challenge widow. I'm under strict instruction, nothing for 2 years. So that's the party line. I've always fancied to run the Great Wall of China. Just there's a marathon where you can go over and run up and down it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe not next year. Maybe the year after. We'll see.
Incredible. No more questions in the chat, and I can't see any hands. Has anybody got any final questions for Alex before we
I
close
was
out
going
today?
to I was going to say, just on the back of mindset and things, if anyone hasn't seen Limitless, the Chris Hemshaw series, and challenges, that is very, well, I find it quite inspirational and intriguing and interesting. So whether there's a few challenges in that, Alex, that you might be intrigued by.
Yeah, my wife won't like that, but I was busy writing it down.
Where's that on
Yeah.
going? Is that like a Netflix series, is it?
It's on Disney Plus on National Geographic, called Limitless. Well worth the watch for these sorts of mindset attitudes.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Gail.
Yeah, thanks, Gail.
I don't know if there is time for one more or not.
Probably. I think we've got a bit of time as long as you're Alex.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, it's not a question. I think it's just a comment from Carmen. Any more? Oh, James. James got his hand up. Go for it, James.
Yeah, sorry, that's what that's what I was asking. I wasn't trying to steal. Well, I guess I was trying to steal a mic. Like when I've heard some people talk about this stuff before, like there's much more explicit mention of things like mindfulness activities, meditation, things like that, and positive affirmations as well, constantly repeating positive mantras and stuff. And I noticed everything that you were talking through there was really being clear on what that goal is, setting out a plan, having the grit, determination, understanding what you're doing it for, and smashing it out. So what I was wondering is, how important do you find things like mindfulness, positive affirmations in and the role that they might have in endurance and mindset?
Yes, it's a really good point, and I think it's sort of maybe two parts to this answer. I think yes, they do have a really important part to play, specifically like affirmations. If we think about the use of affirmations in trying to either reinforce or change a belief, right? So we all tell ourselves, we all talk to ourselves, hundreds, thousands of times a day. So we're talking to ourselves already. And it's about interrupting or, in some cases, changing the narrative by affirming something. So, if I'll give an example. I used to PT 15 years ago, and I started PTing some high-end clients, right? And I felt, I'd drive over the hill early in the morning to get to the first session at 5 o'clock, and I'd be dealing with, some pretty, CEOs of companies, some pretty big hitters, and I'd only been doing it for maybe a year or so, and I was quite nervous about sort of turning up. And so I'd come off the back of a Tony Robbins event, and I know he'd mentioned about sort of affirmations and words of affirmative, and I started saying to myself, something that was like, I'm a shepherd, not a sheep. I'm a leader, not a follower. I value and I serve. And it was just something that meant something to me at the time, um, to the point where, I was just saying this in my head, and by the end, I was sort of banging it out loud, like I'm a shepherd, not a sheep. I'm a leader, not a follower. I value and I serve, right? And anyone coming the other way would have thought, who the hell is this crazy guy? Right? Like, what is going through his head for him to act like that? But what it did was it allowed me to, when I got to the gym, I turned up in state, and I believed that, right? I was the person there. I was the expert that they'd hired. Didn't matter that they were so successful in business or whatever, right? When it came to learn, coaching them, teaching them, exercise, I was the person, right? So I absolutely do believe in them. what I think sometimes in this is certainly not all the cases, but some streams of mindfulness, I think when you're trying to develop things like discipline, when you're trying to really push beyond your own limitations of what you perceive as possible, I think they can sometimes take you away from that because it's quite a calm, again, back to energies, not gender here, but calm sort of feminine energy of just being. Whereas what we're looking for really is something that allows you to move forwards, take action and do, right? So absolutely some of these tools have a place here to play, but you just got to be really mindful of the right tool for the right job.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the question, James. Andy, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wondered about diet, and you got to power your brain, you got to power your legs, power every bit of your body to do all these challenges. Is there a sort of recommended diet for all those kind of things? My son tells me that vegetarianism is the way forward, and is good for every aspect of your body and brain. But I didn't know whether that was something you'd looked into.
Yeah, well, we could definitely talk about nutrition for probably quite a while. Um, so for me, doing ultra endurance events is important to get enough carbohydrate, essentially, right? That's what's going to power you. You're not going to be breaking down fats to use as energy in most of the cases, but you're going to need the carbohydrates to keep you going. I've never trained my body to be keto fat adapted, so I need the carbohydrates there. But I'm also breaking down muscle, right, as I'm starting to exercise. So if you take the channel, what I needed was my stomach's moving around all the time. I can't really have too much solid food. I need high carbohydrates. I need proteins, and I need electrolytes. Those are the main things, right? Whereas you think about like a triathlon, like in the run and the swim, maybe sort of similar, but in the bike, your stomach's pretty static, so you can afford to eat more solid food. And again, you still want carbohydrates, you still want little bits of protein. Um, to the question of like veganism, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that. I think there's a lot of benefits that have been shown from a plant-based diet in terms of longevity. Removing processed meats, for example, is incredibly important. However, if you just eat sort of vegan, a lot of people can become deficient in vitamin B12, other B vitamins, not get enough protein in, they can become iron deficient. So I don't think there's like one answer fits all. There is, things might have moved on, certainly since I've kind of studied it, but certainly when I was kind of looking more into nutrition, there was work by William Woolcott in terms of the metabolic typing diet. So understanding whether you're more of a protein type or a carbohydrate type or a mixed type, and understanding the homeostatic controls within the body. There's about 7 of them that determine, which basically. So yeah, I can't give you a straight answer. I think it's more down to genetic predisposition and what works for your body, and what you want to do. So if you want to have longevity, maybe it is moderate amounts of meat or sort of cutting it out completely and just making sure you supplement and having a plant-based diet. If ultra endurance challenges your thing, you need to make sure the carbohydrates are there. You're getting enough protein in to replenish broken down muscles.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for your question. I can't see any more hands, and I haven't got any more in the chat, so I think we're done. Thank you, everybody. Alex, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I think I'd heard at least one of those stories, but I didn't realize how much stuff you'd done. It's really inspiring. I think one of the quotes I took away was, "When you think you're done, you're only 40% done." That's pretty inspiring and hard to comprehend, because I think when I feel done, I feel I'm done. But that is, yeah, pretty inspiring stuff. Thank you everyone for your engagement as well and your energy throughout that. Thank you also for sharing. There's been quite a few people who have shared various things. Thank you, Gail, for sharing about Limitless. Oh, got a hand from Joseph. Everybody's here after work. A lot of people are probably quite tired as well. But for people to show up regularly to come and better themselves, to improve, is really great. So, like-minded people, I think I mean, Alex, I guess that's why you started, right? Just associating with the right people, getting that mindset of, continually trying to build yourself and develop yourself. And I can see that here. We have that every time. So you're already on the road, everyone, to get into that mentality. I was looking as well at the thumbnails, and I could see everyone just gripped. We've had a 100% attention, so that is fantastic to have everyone stay. So thank you very much. It's also amazing as well that this is a real person doing some real things. You can read stuff in textbooks, but to have someone actually go through their experience and tell some real tales is amazing. So, Alex, thank you very much, and thank you for agreeing to come and speak to us tonight. I'm sure everyone's truly inspired.
No, thank you. Very much appreciated to get the invite, and yeah, awesome to meet everyone, and thanks for having me.